Hello and welcome to part two of Secret Invasion, the TV series, episodes or 4 to 6,
4 to 6, yeah.
and we'll also be touching on the comic book as I've read that this week. Um, so before we go too far into anything, and
Before we
even
invade each other secretly.
and even before we jump into our corner,
What?
I just want to say thank you very much to everyone as we are at 1,000 subs.
I
Because
said what? Like, as if I'd acted really well because I was genuinely surprised, but I was genuinely surprised. Not the 1,000 because I saw that earlier, but I couldn't put two and two together. It's been a long day, people. Been a long day. But
and
anyway,
this
sorry. You go on thanking people.
Yes, and because this will be definitely out before we do any of the 1,000 specials,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
because it happens to fall at like the worst time for us because I'm off for next week because I have the boy. So we lose all the recording time next week. So there
Just
will
one
be,
more reason why breeding is bad.
so there will be some specials done for the 1,000 episodes, but they may be a little bit delayed.
Yeah. But they'll definitely be coming. And like the idea is, as ever, we have great fun doing this, but we want to say thanks. We want to say thanks for the support that people give us, and we're not going to say thanks for any monetary value. So it's some more bloody videos, and you'll like it.
content, content for you
Yes,
all.
yes,
So now that we've done the sidetrack for the thanking of people, should we get in our corners?
yes. Let's do it. Let's get in them reading corners. Reading corner. I'm going to be honest, Chris. I've been a bit rubbish at reading corner this week, and the bulk of my time, because I've had very minimal time to, was spent having a reread of Secret Invasion just so we could talk about it today. But I did read one thing, and when I say one thing, a singular thing.
Yes.
That's how bleak it's been. I read one issue of a comic, but I just fancied trying something new. And when I say new, new to me, it's not
Yeah.
new. So I went on to the Image Comics website, and they do a lovely thing of you've got the ability to read a lot of first issues on there. And I just thought I'll have a scroll through and read the first one that I fancy that I don't already own a lot of the issues for digitally or intend to own a lot of the
Yeah.
issues for digitally. And as I was scrolling through, I saw one called Farmhand, and I recognised the art on the front cover, so I had a look, and it was, I'm not sure, I think it's Rob Gilroy or Guillory, sorry, who's the artist, and he was the artist on comic book series called Chew, and I think you and me might have spoken about this offline. I don't think we've ever spoken about it on the show. But it was a series I loved. Large parts of the story, but also a large part to the art. So I thought, oh, let's give it a go. So yeah, I read the first issue of that. Blooming loved it, and it is. It's already going on my list to pick up all the trades. Now, it's he's both writing and drawing this one, and I
Mm.
think. Now, I think at this point in time, it's up to 20 issues being out, but he started in 2018, so I think it's probably quite a long, painful task being the writer and artist on it. So,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's complete yet. But ultimately, it's or what I got from the first issue is it's about a farm, and it's about a family farm. But on this family farm, they actually grow body parts and human organs, and they are actually grown out of trees and plants. So it is very organically grown, and throughout this issue, you see the son of the main farmer, a farmer called Jediah, returning back to the family farm after some sort of estrangement. And there's lots of hints at
Mm.
that, but I guess that's going to be a larger part of the story. And he comes back with his wife and his two kids. So Jedediah's grandchildren, and one of them had met him before, and the other one I think was too young. And there's a bit of nervousness. You're mainly focused on that part of the family as they go back and visit, but the family farm is no longer your traditional, I guess, Smallville Clark Kent kind of farm at this point. It's got big domes over it because it's now doing very well as a business. And for most of the issue, you're almost on a Willy Wonka kind of tour of seeing the stuff inside the farm and the complex. Although they're going round on a tractor.
Yeah.
but you get to see organ trees and things like that, and everywhere kind of goes, oh, I'll meet you by the Bowel River and things like that. Like everything's got like a body part name, and the art throughout is really really quirky. All the characters are quite distinct. He has a really interesting style. Very, but lots of characters always seem like they've got a short body, long head.
Mm.
It seems to be one of the styles that he does, and I think that weird it very much suits the weirdness of lots of organic body plants growing out of the floor and things like that. It feels really natural when he draws it. And as the issue goes on and kind of gets to its conclusion, there are nefarious forces trying to get in and steal the secrets of the farm, including a child who had lost an arm in a battle that we don't know about, but it was hinted at that something had happened, a war or a battle at some
Yeah.
point. Um, and he tries to steal it. And the reason why I say about he's got a prosthetic arm is he tries to conceal a part of one of the plants into his arm, but he is captured, and then he is given a new limb from one of the trees. And as the issue ends, you see a room with an agent of an organization that we don't know what it is. Hopefully I'm layering on here that this issue gives you mystery after mystery after mystery to kind of pick away at. Um, Dead on the floor, and you see this boy with a gun in his hand, blood on himself, and you see like the view of the arm that he'd been given. So, like, has the arm done it, or has he turned to that side? But
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely smashed full of subplot and subplot and subplot. I feel
Mm.
like he's got a big story to tell here, or a big world that he's created out of a singular concept. And yeah, I'm definitely going to come back for more on this.
That sounds very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I too have spent most of my reading time this week reading Secret Invasion, but I did manage to also to get one issue in. It was the
Look at
first
us, the
issue.
one issue boys, the
I
one issue
know.
boys, one issue boys.
It was the first issue of something uber new, as in I only picked it up this week. Issue one of Fish Flies.
I was gonna say, I know what this is. You told me. Sorry. Yet again, looked like I was acting, but that was genuine surprise, despite the fact I knew it.
Obviously, I won't go into too much because you are waiting for it and you are more psyched about this than I was.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the trade.
But it is stunningly beautiful. It is very word light. It is a lot of this first issue. The story is told in just the images and the artwork, but it doesn't feel like you're missing anything for it not having any words. There's about 5 pages that there's just no words at all, but it says so much
Yeah.
without having to have any words. And it's black and white with the occasional small bit of color in there. It is
Um,
stunning.
Jeff Lemire can often do that. I've said to you before how much I love him as a writer, and I think sometimes, yeah, it doesn't have to be conversation heavy, but somehow, even if even if it's not wordy, as you say, you get a lot of content anyway packed in, and I noticed that this one is drawn by him as well, and I have read and looked at ones that he's drawn before, and I do really like his art style. Very quirky, isn't it, compared to sort
Yeah.
of your generic drawing? But yeah, I said to you I was going to get this anyway when the mini series is complete and the trade comes out. I'll be buying this, but hearing you having read it and liked it makes me even more intrigued to want to get it. So
Yes.
please release them quickly so I can get the trade.
You've got at least another 5 months because I think it's a 6 issue run, and
Yeah,
then
I think I don't even think we've seen the trade and the solicits yet. I don't think. So
new.
yeah, I've got a while to go. Although I said to you before, I'm doing reread of everything Jeff Lemire's ever written. So
You've got some
alongside all the
time.
other stuff I'm reading, yeah. So it may take me a while to get to this.
But yeah, so yeah, very very sparse this week. But then it is because we did 8 issues of
Well,
Secret Invasion.
the thing is, as sparse as it is, we both read something we really enjoyed, and
Yes.
sometimes that's it. Sometimes it isn't necessarily about the amount of issues, is it? I have had weeks before where I've read tons more than what I've spoken about, but most of it has been just okay,
Mm,
and I'd have struggled to kind of really get anything out of it. So sometimes it is nice to be a bit sparser, but a higher quality, maybe.
yes. So, shall we get into the world
Yes,
of Disney
in,
Plus
into the main event of the evening.
and come back for part two of Secret Invasion, the TV show? So,
I think it's fair to say where we left off, neither of us were brimming with love. Um, so if you haven't seen part one, it's on the channel. I would say I'll put a link up. Terrible at doing that, so probably I won't. But it really is there. So if you want to kind of know where we are when we get to this point, we're not loving it, but yeah, there's a whole episode about why we're not loving it.
yes. So, we start with episode four, and we see that Gaia is not dead.
No,
The
dun
the
dun
big
dun.
the big cliffhanger, it turns out that wasn't there because she'd used the superpower machine to make Super Scroll. Um, she then meets up with Talius. He explains that they are planning an attack on the president, and with the help of the Skrulls, trying to stop the rebellion. There's a firefight on a runway where Talius gets the president out of an armored truck. Uh,
I mean, it's not the worst action scene, is it?
no,
Like, I feel like, much like I think we said coming into or sort of coming out of episode three is the plot point felt a bit forced, and I'm not saying that you wouldn't target the president, but that kind of escalation of the peril and the danger felt very unnatural and very and I'll go back to forced again. I think it's the best word for it. Very
yeah,
forced, but yeah, I do think they put together a decent action scene around it.
yeah. So in this, Fury's missus meets with Patriot and is told that has to one of them is going to die, either Fury or her. Um, Fury goes off hunting in the Russia. Looks like he's going to go to via Norway or Sweden. Um, and
Which I'd
during
love
this
to
point,
visit, by the way. Like,
yes,
I share. I think like I'd probably just stop there and not bother saving the world from the invasion. I just go, oh, Scandinavia. I always meant to go here. Let's just holiday it out in here for a while.
so they go to get Ritson. Um, during this, Gravak kills Talios, and
Yeah, shame, wasn't it?
yeah, the one person that you know during those first few episodes we were like, "There's an interesting character." Dead.
And I'll be honest, I didn't necessarily feel like he was safe coming into it. I felt like one of the bigger characters in this that had been established before, but I think once I saw sort of casting of for example, Amelia Clark coming in to play a scroll character, I thought, yeah, all of a sudden he becomes a little bit more likely to be the fatality or one of the fatalities. There are going to be multiple more, and I will say, as much as I don't think we got the payoff for what we hoped they could have done with him as a character, I
Mm,
kind of him being the main character in this, or I'll go back to the moral compass, but potentially not the moral compass, like seeing how the draw between what you think might be right, loyalty to a friend, loyalty to someone who's helped you before, against loyalty to a cause. In this case, your species. It, it it was always hinted at, but I don't think we really got there with it. And of course, killing them off doesn't really help you thinking, oh, we're going to get there with it then, does it?
yeah. Um, So that was a bit of a damp squib because obviously we thought that oh, one of the big players is dead, only to turn out that they're not, and then the one that you cared about, or care is a bit of a strong word, have interest in,
Yeah, yeah, had the kind of the most promise, I think,
is the one that
throughout the
then
series.
gets binned off completely, and just like, oh, cheers for that. That was just what we
Yeah,
were needing.
and like I know, like we're going through the episodes, but I think possibly after the last one, I think picking up on stuff as we go, maybe the way to go with this. But um, not to sort of retread what I've just said, but it was a bit of a touchstone for probably why I didn't enjoy this, the whole kit and caboodle much. Missed opportunity is a term you're going to hear a lot later, and this was one of them. This is one of the big missed opportunities for me. The potentially one of the most interesting threads to pick at, was only lightly scratched and then thrown away.
Yeah. So we go into the fifth episode, where Ritson is in hospital, and the rebels question Gravak for the fact that he couldn't kill Fury, and proceeded to try and take him down. But Gravax is a bit of a badass in this and
He does. He
absolutely
goes full
fucks
bastard here,
every
doesn't he?
single one
Yeah.
of them up.
Yeah.
Um, we see uh, Gaia meeting up with Fury, and
Now, I fear I might do a bit of a spoilery here for someone to talk about in a minute, but just before we go too much, wasn't it at the end of episode 4 where we got the roadie reveal, or was that in? That was the end of episode 4, wasn't it?
yes, it was.
Yeah. Which I think there's really something in that, and I kind of want to pick up on that because um, I think when they wrote this, they went, "Oh my god, this is going to knock people's socks off when we reveal Rhodey is a Skrull," and it didn't knock my socks off at all. In fact,
No,
so much so we're going there going, which episode did that happen? And I think that tells a tale in itself of how inconsequential that felt, but also how telegraphed it was.
yeah,
So, like, pretty much from the first scene that he was in it, not necessarily from the trailers, although knowing Secret Invasion, it was a little bit of thought there might be a chance. But from the first time I kind of see him, I'm going, oh god, yeah, okay, like you're gonna do him a scroll, and I don't even think they hid it very well. And but
no,
I don't think it wasn't hidden well with a purpose either. I think they thought they were hiding it well, but yeah. So when it kind of actually happened, I was just like, oh okay, Rhodey's
yeah,
a scroll.
yeah. We see that Fury and his missus won't kill each other. Fury goes, and then Gaia meets up with Lady Fury, and their house is
Priscilla,
attacked.
I think her
Priscilla,
name is.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
uh,
so.
their house is attacked, and we get lots of gun, bang, bang as both of them empty lots and lots of bullets into lots of scrolls that,
Generic scroll 7,
yeah.
generic scroll 8, that sort of thing. Yeah.
We find out that Gravax is looking for the harvest. The harvest being a super uber serum made up of all the DNA of all of the heroes past from every cleanup crew. And this is where I was thinking I would much have rather had a damage control series
And also like why would you have a serum that has all of their DNA
mixed together.
mixed together? Yeah, so that was the point. Yeah, I can understand them having like the DNA of everyone individually, but why did they go? I'll tell you what, we'll knock together a cocktail. And the only purpose I could fathom is so that they could do what they do in episode 6, and like my trending of it was coming down like that, and around this point, so tail end of 4 into 5, it just takes a massive crash for me. And I wasn't liking it anyway, but and it is things like this of going, oh my god, like you couldn't come up with a better story than this. And even if you wanted to have super scrolls and you wanted to do something, and we'll get to what they do. There's loads of singular DNA, and just
Yeah,
write that in and go, well, I have to plumb it all in or something. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it just felt lazy and well, like we've got a scene in mind for later, so no one will really mind if we just make up some real kind of stupid Deus Ex Machina here that people won't question. I'm sorry, I will, because you're paid professionals. I expect you to write something that is interesting, compelling, and makes a degree of sense,
yeah.
even in a comic book world.
Fury meets up with Sonya in Finland, goes to his grave, where, of course,
So,
that's where he leaves the harvest serum, tools up,
yeah,
puts on his eye patch, walks out in a moody way, and that is where we end episode 5.
and you may notice for people who watch the first part that we're kind of buzzing through these a lot quicker. But I think that is testament to the actual content in there, because a lot of this is just go to A, go to B, go to C, and sometimes there's a link between A, B, and C, but generally things are moving at a pace. I think in these episodes of we didn't really know what we were going to do, bang, 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 because we want to get into this bit, and I think there's not a lot of actual storyline plot points to linger on there, is it? Because
No,
you're only spending a couple of minutes with each bit, and
the
even if I
long,
think
I
you
was gonna say
did,
the longest bit is the shootout scene, which is about five
yeah.
minutes.
And I think if you do linger on them any longer, you just spend your whole time spiraling into, well, this is rubbish, wasn't it? So, yeah, like that's. I think that's why we can gun through it a bit quicker. It's just not got the it's not got the content there, and
No,
anything that is added in is just ancillary and probably negated by the end of episode 6 anyway. So you kind of go, what's the point of talking about it then?
yeah, it is that thing of this seemed to be, oh shit, we need to get to point 4 as quick as possible. We've taken too long on 1 and 2. But 3, we'll do everything that we had in part 3. Just smash it together. Go, go.
Yeah, so you kind of got like I always get kind of fixated on peril with these sort of things, because I always want a convincing peril, because I want as someone in the audience to have and something to engage me, something to interest me, something to kind of go, oh, will they, won't they? You
Yeah,
generally know they will, but something of some substance, and even with that here, they kind of go with two different strands, of which if I had to go for one of them, I would pick the president being convinced by Rhodey that the attack is by the Russians, so he is going to effectively start World War III, and then the Skrulls can then take over the world because World War III's happened. But you don't just get that, do you? You get that and the harvest.
yeah,
And I don't think it needed both, except for one of them justifies an action scene. However, when I say I would go for the president picking, also I'd pick the presidential story. I really wouldn't, because that means I'd have to get more of Ritson on my TV. And I thought when I saw Donald Trump become the US president, I'd seen the most unconvincing US president ever, until they rolled out this guy. This guy is the US president in the Marvel universe. Someone step in. I don't
yeah.
care who it is, someone step in, because he just seems one, stupid,
Yep,
two, inept,
yep.
three, a buffoon. If I had a thesaurus, I'd get every single word I could. But he, and I know there probably is supposed to be a satirical element there of going, well, America could put a buffoon president in, and I didn't want like an absolute allegory or rip off of Trump, but I kind of went,
Mm,
no, like I don't buy it. I don't buy it in the universe that you've shown us throughout the movies and the TV shows, that America in this universe would go down that same road.
yeah. So yeah, at this point, because I did all 3 in one hit for these last 3, and I was
Oh,
just
you
like,
poor boy.
oh, at least there's only one left.
Yeah.
So we won't go into our final episode where we see.
Well, I guess when you say there's only one left, that kind of tells the tale. I was very much the same. So when I was generally watching them on the Wednesdays that they come out, not because of any massive excitement, but there ain't much on telly on a Wednesday, so I just thought I'll watch them as they come out. But when we come to the finale day, I wasn't looking forward to it. I was like, oh, I'll just get that watch tonight. But yeah, I didn't come into this episode. I didn't even think, oh well, a great final episode could save this series. It was just like,
Yeah.
oh well, let's get this over and done with, and hopefully it's a short one, eh?
So we open up with Fury confronting Gravax in New Skrullos, and after some back and forth, he hands him the harvest
He does.
and asks
Foolish.
for him to spare Earth and conquer other planets. Gravix refuses this and uses the harvest on himself and attempts to kill Fury. Dun dun
Dun
dun!
dun dun dun.
It's not Fury at all. It's
It wasn't.
Gaia.
It was never Fury. It's not Fury all along. Yes, yes. Gaia to the rescue.
So both of them are now Super Scrolls and have all the powers of all the other superheroes, and we get a big fight with lots
Yes.
and lots of CGI and stealing
Lots
of
of
other.
hero poses and lots of kind of Easter eggy. Their arms look a little bit like the arms of the Hulk, or the arms of
Yeah,
this character, or the arms of that character.
and eventually Gaia kills Gravax.
Yeah, I mean, like, there is a bit of muddiness for me here, and if anyone wants to kind of go, well, how can you say you didn't like the show if you don't understand it? But I wasn't entirely sure whether Gaia had better Super Scroll powers or Gravik did, or whether they had the same, like whether the harvest that she gave him had a few less. I don't know, and to be honest, I wasn't going to go back and look to see if that was there because I don't really credit them with having the idea of that. But yeah, I guess ultimately it could just be the idea that if they're equally matched, she was better at using them, or like she was smarter with how she used her powers. But yeah, it was a fight scene. I'll probably save like kind of how what I felt about that till we when we do the wrap up of the show. I think
Yeah.
'cause I've got a lot to say about that bit.
During the fight, it is intercut with the president trying to be convinced by Patriot
Fury, yeah.
and Fury
Oh
to
yeah,
which
sorry,
one
yeah,
of
both of them,
them
yeah.
will whether they will nuke Russia to destroy New Scrollos
He's
or
a
not.
scroll. No, he's a scroll. No,
Which
he's a
one's the
scroll.
Scrolls?
No, he's a scroll. Whilst President Idiot ineptly lays in the bed going, and now I think if I'm the President of the United States of America, when I've got two people with weapons pointed at each other going, here's a scroll, no, here's a scroll, I would go, well, one of you's probably a scroll. I tell you what, I'll put the attack on hold for a minute until we resolve this issue.
Sonya makes an appearance, which was a little
Oh,
bit of relief,
yeah. A little
and
bit of
she calls him
redemption.
out for being a stupid idiot as a president.
Yeah.
Um, Fury kills Patriot. Ritson
And
then
he's a
calls off the
scroll.
strike and finds out he's a scroll. I know, what a
Scroll.
surprise. Allowing Gaia to leave and free the prisoners that Gravax had, which is why they could then shapeshift into certain people.
Dun dun dun. All of them are still around. They were just in the basement.
Yes. Uh,
So Rhodey's back. Everett Ross is back. Everything that you thought was the potential peril for this series as people might be lost. Don't you worry. We reset it all at the end. Everything's fine.
yep. Ritson puts in a new bill declaring all off world species as hostile and wants to hunt down all the Skrulls on Earth, causing
Anyone, wasn't
unrest.
it? It's anyone from another planet.
Yep. And basically lots and lots of attacks being shown on in a montage style. Um, Sonia meets up with Gaia and proposes a partnership between her and Sonia to protect everyone against Ritson's bill and to save the good aliens. And then we see Fury leaving with his good lady wife,
Who gives us their scroll name? But I haven't written it down. I don't think I can
Vara, I
speak. Oh
think it
yeah,
was.
I'm not very good with scroll.
Yeah, and they are going to go and try and negotiate a peace summit with the Kree,
Yeah, yeah,
and that is Secret Invasion.
yeah. So, I mean, hopefully it's clear. I didn't enjoy this show, and to a large part, I didn't enjoy it because I don't think there was much enjoyable going on. It wasn't like, oh, it's 50-50. Some of it's really good, some of it's really bad. I think like the threads that were good were few and far between, and around it was a lot
Dross.
of a lot of average to dross, yeah, and I don't know. I like in most stuff. I want it to be predominantly good or predominantly engaging, and this fell far short for me. That the fight, the Super Scroll versus Super Scroll fight. I don't normally get too heavily into effects because I think we do live in an amazing world now of CGI where you can do some wonderful things, and but it does cost money, and I think even bad CGI is better than what I could deliver. So I think I'm more forgiving of it than most. However, where I am unforgiving of bad CGI is bad CGI in something that's a bad story. Because as I say, I'll swallow the worst CGI in the world if the story's bloody good. Like
Yeah,
but this didn't. And when you got to that fight, partially I didn't care. I didn't care about Gravik. I didn't care about Gaia. I didn't care who won. I guess I'm supposed to inherently care that it's not Gravik because Gravik wants to take over the world. I don't live in that world, and you didn't really give me much reason to care about the people that do during this series.
yeah,
So ultimately, whoever wins on this, I'm not that fast. And again, I missed opportunity. So I hated the way they did the Super Scroll. So Super Scroll for me is the dude with the powers of the Fantastic Four. Now, Fantastic Four do not exist in this universe,
yeah,
as far as we know. However, unlikely to do it in a TV show. But how interesting would it have been if the harvest, or whatever we were going to call it, was the powers of the Fantastic Four? But even if it wasn't that, I just thought it was ridiculous. Effectively, what they made is two god characters
yeah,
because they gave them every power. And we've seen these characters do some amazing stuff. So they've amalgamated it all together. And I think the fight, if you're going to do that, this fight needed to be so much bigger, bolder, and more epic than it was.
yeah,
Just a kind of generic couple of minute Marvel fight, wasn't it?
yeah,
And I just it was that thing that annoys me more than anything else. Of, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we gave them every power? And it only manifests in, as I say, like different. They change their arm a little bit, and you go,
Hulk
no,
arm,
yeah, yeah,
Groot arm.
and generically they just tend to use Captain Marvel's powers anyway. So
Yeah,
because why wouldn't you? Because you've established her as almost the Superman of that. But yeah, it was badly planned. I think it was badly choreographed, and it was badly CGI'd. And I just think it was a bad concept.
the thing is, at this point as well, Gravak has not been a hateable villain enough to warrant us to be that infatuated with him
Or
getting his ass kicked.
or by the same extension, wasn't likable enough at the beginning to really hate the fact that he turned evil either.
Yeah,
Like he was just there for the most part. You said about that speech that he did at the beginning of episode 5, and I think that's the only time where he piqued my interest at all,
yeah,
and that was too little, too late for me. But yeah, I'm
and
with you. Like,
Gaia, she
oh,
she's just been an annoying child. Yeah, mum's
yeah,
dead and now her dad's dead, but
I never
again,
really got
not
the
there's no
impression she cared,
yeah,
other than when we were told she cared. Like
yeah.
it never come across in the acting or the story that that was something that really bothered her.
So again, why are we meant to care that she's the good guy now?
And also like I'm not saying that the idea of someone losing their mum isn't a horrible thing. Of course it is, but I never met her mum. You didn't even feature her much in this, and her dad, for the most part, they had somewhat of a strange relationship. And as we said, I don't think they did the best by her dad. So by the time I got to this episode, I'll be honest, I'd forgotten Talos existed. Like I wasn't even putting two and two together. So yeah, the stakes for her or the reason for her being annoyed, I go on paper, yes, on paper, someone losing their mother and father that should be easily relatable. But again, they never really did anything to make me think that she cared or to make me care about her loss.
Yeah, and then obviously at the same point you've got shit president with the he's a scroll, no, he's a scroll, he's a scroll, no, he's a scroll, he's a scroll, no, he's a scroll. And it's like again, like you said, logically,
Yeah.
you'd be like, right, hold on a second. One of you's clearly bullshitting. We won't nuke anyone just yet,
Or,
and we'll get to the
or
bottom of this. Or
and I know
fuck it, I'm
like
shooting both of you.
Well, I know Sonia comes in, but I mean, like, and you're right, fuck it, I'm shooting both of you, which is probably what would happen. Let's be honest. In the real world, the president, and I think in a Skrull invasion with Rhodey kind of having been in and around stuff, you know, you probably wouldn't be that close to the president right then at that point, especially as other people highly suspected it. But if you're the president, you've probably got lots of other people around you as well. Not millions because of the Skrull invasion, but you're probably going to go, we don't even need to shoot you. We'll cut your fingers off. Because
Yeah,
we've known, because it's been established in this, if you cut a Skrull's finger off, it goes all scrolly. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not queuing up for that. If someone at work says to me on Monday to prove that you are who you are and going to cut your finger off, I'll say, "Are you all right? Thanks. I'll get another job." But
yeah.
in this sort of circumstance,
Take my
I
pinky.
think,
Go on.
yeah, yeah, and you know, like answer very quickly. But again, the tension wasn't there. I also didn't buy that. I know Matey Boy's getting his super scroll on, but I didn't buy that America firing nukes at Russia. Well, I didn't buy that it would happen that quickly anyway,
Hmm.
but I didn't buy that that handed the world to the Skrulls. I
No.
bought that probably did eternal damage to the human race, but probably destroyed the planet more than anything else. So it didn't feel like a credible plot point. And no, I'll leave it there. I'll come back to my "and" in a minute, which is my biggest probably problem with the whole series, but and it does kind of link into that a bit.
Yeah, it's a having Sonya then turn up. Sonya could have just had a pop at both of them, or like, poof, poof,
And I
and
think Sonya would have. Like the Sonya I met in the episodes before would have just gone, doesn't matter, I'll just kill them both.
yeah,
That way we resolve it in the right way. Some an innocent person might die, but
eh.
eh.
And then obviously the end bit where Fury just leaves, and it's like, so we're left with Sonya working with the Super Scroll, and Fury's fucking off again.
Yeah, yeah.
I know. I think um, Samuel's deal's not got a lot left on there,
I think he's in the Marvels. I'm sure I saw him in the trailer for the Marvels.
but I was like, this just seems like. Have you seen that episode of Simpsons where Homer invents the character for Itchy and Scratchy, and
Yes,
then he just
yes.
like has gone back to his own home planet?
Poochie, wasn't it?
That's the
Was that
one.
his name?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it just stank of that at the end of like,
I mean, to be honest, I think it's giving it too much credit, applying the quality that was Poochie to it. But no, yeah, I'm with you. It did. I feel like it was supposed to be a full stop and end point for Fury, a happy ending to a degree, which you know that establishment of Fury's given his life to Shield and to all of this. and probably at the cost of the relationship with his wife. And then, of course, the snap happened, etc., etc., etc. But they didn't do a good enough job of it during this series for me for me to care. I gave no. I mean, we said it earlier, like when and Priscilla was introduced, I gave no craps because effectively Fury just seems like a really shit husband.
Yeah.
And okay, he might have been doing it for heroic or altruistic reasons, but at no point did. I mean, I kind of went, I think you're better off without him. Go
Yeah.
and find yourself a nice sort of scroll lad who actually cares about you and does it. And okay, like doesn't have the air of mystery and the eye patch and all that jazz, but he's really kind of no good for you. And you get that kind of Easter eggy bit of, and I say Easter eggy because in the comics, well established that the Kree and Skrull are eternal enemies. Not so much in the movies, although it is there, but of course they've
Yeah.
never really done the big conflicts there. But yeah, are like we're gonna go and try and get a piece of core with the Kree. And so, if that's true, and if that is where they go with this story, doesn't that prove that Gravik was right? Because if Fury had this up his sleeve,
Yeah.
why wasn't he doing it? And again, go back to the original. Why didn't Fury find a home for them? Like, and I know like it's a bit
Yeah.
harsh to maybe put the singular responsibility onto him, but he is the one who said it. And even if you take out that snap time, there was kind of nothing in this that told me why he couldn't.
Yeah.
Told me where that struggle was. And like if you said to me right now, how many habitable planets in our solar system are habitable? I don't know. Probably not many. But we're not in my world. We're in a world where we've already met the Kree. Like Carol Danvers is out there, and supposedly, like her role in the Marvel universe or the Marvel Cinematic Universe is just going around there and being a pretty much just kind of a spacefarer who saves people on planets. She must have found bloody hundreds of the buggers.
How many planets have the Guardians been on?
Yeah, yeah, and so again, it's that stretching that you're in an unbelievable kind of fantastical universe that they've created. You need to factor that in. You set like kind of the rules for this, and you set that he knows everyone. And I don't know, it just was pish weak. And yeah, as you say, is an ending for me. You know what? I didn't even feel like they live happily ever after either. I think like they'll go off in a spaceship and he'll get distracted and he'll go off and do stuff and she'll be left at home wherever that home is. Yeah, poor Priscilla,
Yeah.
the true tragic character of this series, destined to be disappointed by her husband over and over again.
Yes. But
Any
yeah,
plus points for you? Like, are there any things in this series? And we can go back to the first three episodes as well. But is there any redeeming qualities for you on it?
Sonia.
Yep, damn right, Sonia.
That's
Damn right, Sonia.
that's the only thing that out of this whole thing that any character that I want to see in something else or them do something else with is Sonya. It's like
See,
I'm bored of Fury now. Fury has, as I said, this whole fucking oh, I'm just gonna go back to my off-world spaceship. Yeah, I
yeah.
couldn't give a piss about Gaia. Didn't give a fuck about Gravax. This is the idea of a dickhead president. Eh, we've seen that in other things done far better, and yeah, that's it. Nothing out of this, or nothing comes out of this that makes me go, "Oh, I want a season two," or "I want to see where these characters go," other
If you
than
said
Sonya.
if you yeah, I was gonna say if you said to me, you can get a high budget 10 episode season two for this or a one off about Sonya, I'd take the one off about Sonya.
Yes.
The only other really redeeming feature for me, and I'm loath to say what I'm about to say because I've already railed on Ritson and how horrible I found the sort of concept and the delivery of him. I did like that end bit with him though. I did like that he turned on all other world beings.
Mm.
Um, that idea of because quite often you'd get like the president kind of rally at the end, wouldn't you, and go, oh yeah, you know, it's fine. They might have put me in hospital and they might have taken us to the brink, but that was a few rogue elements and it's fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. We can work together. I quite liked the idea of adding that tension into the universe, the world, of going, no, no, no. Like, we were directly attacked by another species, and I'm not having that. And not only am I not having that from the scrolls, but I'm not having that from anyone. So effectively, everyone at this point um, is an enemy.
Yeah.
Now, I know partially. Maybe why I liked it is it speaks to a lot of what we're seeing in the world, and certainly what we see in the UK at the moment. The political parties turning on refugees or people who aren't from around here in their country. So I like that step into real world. I like that step into this being a reaction. And okay, is it acted badly? Is it a bit on the nose? Yeah, but also what I like is what this could do for projects in the Marvel universe. Now we know roughly what the kind of the TV schedule is and what the movie schedule is, and I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure where this plot point overly comes back in again, because I
Mm.
can't think of any upcoming projects that focus a lot on aliens, for example. But I like that it was there. I like that it could pay off. I just
Mm.
hope if it ever does pay off, it's not with the people who created this show.
Yes. Um. So, shall we?
Well, I was gonna say before we
Oh,
go on, worst thing about the show. What was your absolute worst thing about the show?
acting, the level of how much, pretty much the majority of the people in this phone it in. Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson is literally going fury by numbers at this point. Um, Amelia Clark, are you even trying? I get that, the
Yeah,
Thrones
I,
figures did a lot,
I,
but I was like, you literally just turned up to get a paycheck. The guy that plays
Gravik.
Gravak, it was like, interesting Scouse accent. That's about it. Because when he was on screen, he was as dull as dishwater. And this is the thing. I think I know that it's not just them. Obviously, they don't write the script,
Yeah,
but how they all come across doesn't engage you into giving a fuck about these people.
I feel like my worst thing is very similar to yours, but mine is the writing. And I think you're right. I think they're interweaved. But to pick up on the acting thing, I think I'm not a big Samuel L. Jackson fan these days. I watched Pulp Fiction again this week and just remembered how brilliant he was. And and then even then it started to make me think about probably the next 10 years of his career of going, oh, do you know what, really had a presence. And then I kind of go, and then the next 20 years of cinema happened after that, where he just phoned it in for 20 years. Now, don't get me wrong, some people were paying him. They were probably saying, come along and be Samuel L. Jackson. He went, I can do
Yeah,
this. Fine. But I always find it a shame with someone who had a range and was very compelling to do that. But yeah, as I say, I think a lot of that comes down to the directors and the writers just not wanting anything else. But I look at that cast and I go, everyone, well, most the ones I knew anyway coming into this, were all at least decent actors. And this doesn't, in none of this do they feel like they even get close to the bottom end of the range of what I've seen them do elsewhere. And yeah, I don't think it's because they're bad actors. I think it's a combination of bad script and like you said, I think a lot of phoning it in. And I think quite often, like probably Marvel and the Disney gigs are quite a payday, anyway. And so
mm,
they kind of go, well, like if I ever get another payday or not, and I'll pick up on that in a second. But I got paid quite well for this, but they must have read this script and went, oh, well, I'll phone this in. And when I say about another payday out of this, we've established Gaia as an uber powerful. I mean, like really, really uber powerful character now. Um, I don't think we'll ever see her again. I can't imagine what project they're gonna get her into, especially after the reception to this. And as you say, I think Nick Fury hasn't got that much longer to go, and I think a lot of the plot points they put in this, I just think they go to the wayside. Maybe they get mentioned in a news report in the background of another film,
Yeah,
but yeah, I feel like this is going to be um, lost and forgotten about. Now, with some of the other solo series, like like Hawkeyes and Moon Knights and things like that, I think because to the most part they're contained, so they're telling a story about that character, and
mm,
it's probably the character that might appear again, and not such a problem. But this was kind of pitched as a bit of an event like story, wasn't it? That
yeah,
this is more about what it does in that universe you know about, and yeah, I just feel like it's going to be um, kicked into the corner, put into a cupboard, and never spoken of
yeah,
again. And to a large part, I think probably for the best if they do.
yeah. I do know that Sonya is coming back because it's going to be in Captain Britain because there was an announcement.
Captain what?
Captain Britain
No way. I love Captain Britain.
because there was an announcement thing, and yeah, so Sonya's back in that. That was announced. It was either last week or during this week. I saw it on one of the fan
Good
things
news. Oh, I'm really
casting.
pleased about that. Like, because yeah, I like the character, and obviously I said like I would like to see Sonya again. So
Yeah, so
yeah.
Sonya will is potentially going to be back if that film obviously goes through.
Oh,
Um,
Sonya will return. That's what they need at the
yeah.
end of every movie.
But yeah, it's just as you say. I This was done as this is going to affect things in the main story as we go in the same way that One Division did, and um, Winter Soldier and
Yeah,
Thingy was
yeah,
there.
Falcon.
That
Yeah,
Falcon, that they were sub stories following certain characters on their own, happening in the world that all the films are happening in. So it matters.
God, like Falcon and Winter Soldier feels like an eternity ago now. It's probably only like in the last 3 years, isn't it? But that feels
Yeah,
like decades ago that we watched that.
but yeah, so yeah, it doesn't make me want them to do any. As I said, other than Sonya, I wouldn't moan if I never saw any of these people again.
Yeah, and a shame for me because I do want to come out of these projects wanting to see more. I do want to like them, but my God, they sometimes they make it hard, and I think this might be what if to one side. I think this might be a new all-time low for me on Disney Marvel TV shows.
But yeah,
I can't think of any of them that I thought is worse. I might have enjoyed some as little as I enjoyed this, but I think this is the worst. I think.
yeah, it isn't great at all.
Yeah,
But what we do have
but
is a counterpoint, as we both read the Secret Invasion run from 2008.
yeah, and this is second time round for me. I read it when it came out. I was in a big kind of Marvel reading kick, and certainly anything that had Brian Michael Bendis writing it, because this was in the heyday of him revamping the Avengers, etc., etc., etc. I was buying it and reading it. So, but it had been a while. I think I read it at the time, and I don't think I'd picked it up again since. So I think it's been at least sort of a good like 14 years since I'd last read this. So I thought, oh, do you know what? I will, while you're reading it, I will remind myself of what it was all about and what it looked like, and maybe some of the intricacies that I've forgotten from the story along the way.
So I will let you run through the
Yeah, and
basis.
and the thing is, I mean, like we're not going to go like issue by issue to this because we spent a lot of time talking about a TV show. But I mean, effectively, the story we have for Secret Invasion comic book wise. So preamble to this and what was kind of the layout for this was um, in the Avengers. I can't say it's New Avengers or Mighty Avengers.
As the
There'd been
new
a
Avengers, because
yeah
that run that I started
yeah
reading at the
there'd,
time.
there'd been a storyline where they had come into conflict with Elektra, and during that storyline, Elektra is killed, and Elektra turns into a Skrull, and again, kind of a duh 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 moment. And the duh 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 was very much a character who was known to lots of heroes. How were they a Skrull? And Skrulls have been around for years, but how were they a Skrull, and how did we not detect them? How did they go undetected for so long? And it kind of permeated a little bit. There was kind of some scenes where the Illuminati were seen kind of discussing this, but we crash into the Secret Invasion storyline where you have Tony and Reed and Hank Pym, some of the greatest minds in the world, going, "Oh, this is a bit tricky. Like we need to figure out why and how this scroll managed to remain undetected from us, whilst at the same time a scroll ship fortuitously picking this moment to land on Earth. And for you, I figured there might be this might have been a tricky series for you to pick up because it dumps you right into a part of Marvel history where lots of the stories and characters are interlinked. And I reckon there must be some bits where you were sat there scratching your head a bit, going, why? Because at this point, there are two Avengers teams. One led by Luke Cage, one led by Iron Man, and effectively there's a race to the Savage Land, which is
Yeah,
where this Skrull ship is going to land, to kind of see what it is. And then when they get there, there's the hero standoff, isn't there? There's the no us, we're going to arrest you. And a lot of that's based off of Civil War, which we've read.
yeah,
So a lot of this is picking up not that long after Civil War. So there are the rogue criminal Avengers in this new world and Iron Man's sort of state-sponsored Avengers. And of course, at this point, Iron Man is the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's probably one of the most powerful men in the world. But while they are there, um, let's say the scroll plan really kicks off, and part of the scroll plan is Dum Dum Duggan, long time Shield agent, Nick Fury's best friend, is in a space station, Sword space station, and he is revealed as a Skrull, and he blows up the space station at the same time as, and this was heart wrenching for me when I read it, Jarvis, the Avengers butler, is revealed as a Skrull, and he triggers a kind of nanotech virus that takes out Tony Stark's armor and all of the Stark tech, which is running pretty much everything in the, I'm going to say the world, in America, the world,
yeah,
at this part. So doing major damage there. And out of this ship pops a load of Marvel characters. And when I say Marvel characters drawn how they were many years ago, and I would say to the most part drawn how they were drawn in the 80s, and some of them being actually the same characters as were in the Savage Land. So you have Luke Cage, two Luke Cages. You have the
yeah,
70s style Luke Cage. You have the modern Luke Cage. And then kind of what ensues is them saying, oh, we were captured by Skrulls, and a lot of distrust, a bit of battling. You find out some are Skrulls, then you find out like lots of them are Skrulls. And that's a lot of how this series kind of continues. It becomes very much about the Skrulls do have a plan to invade.
yeah.
And a lot of them have been secret invasion, secretly been putting themselves and seeding themselves into positions of trust and power for a long time, including one of the big reveals being that Spider Woman, who had in a lot of Brian Michael Bendis' run, really been built up from a very underutilized character to quite a big character, being revealed as the Skrull Empress, one of the minds behind this, and there's lots of punchy moments. There's lots of punchy moments where these twists are in there. but also it was a really good time for Marvel to reintroduce some characters. So Nick Fury had been out the limelight for quite some time, and in this story they reintroduced Nick Fury with his team of, I can't even remember what they're called at this, the Secret something. Let's say Secret Defenders for the
Yeah.
purpose of this. So you get an ending issue where he comes back to save the day. You There'd been a lot of tension between Thor, Cap, and Iron Man. Now, bearing in mind this is after the death of Cap, so this is not Steve Rogers' Cap, but this gave a chance for a moment where Thor comes back, Steve Rogers is back, Iron Man's back, so you kind of get that rallying moment, but also a point where Thor does. I love that bit where Thor kind of goes, "No, you're still a dick, Tony Stark, and I want nothing to do with you. We were
Yeah.
saving the world here, but you're on your outs." And one of the big plot points that really I don't think is massively dipped into in the miniseries, but is touched on a lot in the spin-offs, is the Skrulls are doing this. It's kind of a religious zealot campaign. So you often hear the term "he loves you" and "he
Yeah.
loves me," and historically the Skrulls have just kind of been shown as an alien invading force, or just villains. And this was a kind of a new spin on it, is that there was a genuine belief with a lot of them that Earth was a promised land for them. It had been told in a version of the Skrull religion before. So actually a lot of them felt like this was a righteous crusade for them. Now,
Yeah.
also in some of those spin-off series, you do have moments where you do meet Skrulls who kind of go, "We know it's not a religious campaign, but we're using this to further our goal." But the Skrulls do wreck shop a bit, don't they? They
Yeah.
do come down, that they do a lot of damage. As I say, all of like America's defenses, or its traditional defenses, are pretty much taken out. So the Skrulls are winning, I would say. But it's a Marvel series, so there's that kind of rallying cry. As like Cap, Iron Man, Thor,
You even
the
get the
young,
Thunderbolts with
yeah, the Young
Seddon.
Avengers, the Thunderbolts with Norman Osborn, the Red Hood, who you may not have experienced in your time, but a character that if you read more of that Avengers run, you will get a bit more au fait with. Um, Lots of characters that are in the universe banding together, or sometimes not together, but at least they're pumping towards the same direction to turn the tide, and ultimately they do, don't they?
Yeah.
They beat back the Scrolls, and I think one of the kind of key elements of this is I think it's a really fun idea. The Scrolls have been around for years, but I think really having a major event where them being able to appear as characters that you know and love, that that's only been sort of touched upon, or never, I guess, to this gravitas. So I think
Yeah.
that's really good. But this is a bridging story. This was a bridging story between Civil War and what comes next. And in the culmination of this, it's Wolverine, isn't it? Wolverine's about to take out Spider Woman, or the Empress, and Norman Osborn takes a shot, and he takes the shot in front of the world's press. So Norman Osborn is now elevated to somewhat of a world hero
Yeah.
because he's the person who took out the main bad guy. And you get to fast forward to the scenes at the end, and in much of the final issue is kind of narrated by him, although you don't realise that, I guess, till the end, is that he is not being given Shield because Shield's being disbanded, but he's been given the keys to the kingdom, and he will run America's defences from that point
Yeah.
onwards. And you get a final page reveal as he walks into a room, and dun dun dun, there is a cabal of villains, much like the Illuminati were. And so it does have elements of kind of big dumb fun to it, but it really does propel the Marvel universe wider story quite a
Mm.
bit further in the comics. But what do you think of it?
See, I really, really like this. As you say, it is very switch your brain off and just watch everyone have a big fucking ruck for
Summer
eight,
blockbuster, isn't it?
eight
Summer
episodes.
blockbuster, yeah.
And you're reading through it and going, but who's who? Who's who? And then you sort of,
Who Do You Trust was the
yeah,
big advertising campaign for it at the time.
but you realize sort of about four issues in, anyone that's in the old school shit is probably gonna be Scroll,
Yeah.
but there are gonna be some that you aren't gonna guess. And it was just great to see all sorts of random characters. Because I said I'd started that
And quite nice
New
to see him
Avengers
in
stuff.
old costumes as well.
Yeah,
I know I'm a sucker for an old costume.
the Sentry was there, and I was like, "Yay, bit of the Sentry."
Fleetingly there though, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
only in the first issue, but he was there.
But
Um,
but again, setting up things to come, and I think that's always worth mentioning on this of going. If you just bought this, so if you'd watch a TV show and you just bought this, there's lots of stuff where you go, what? I feel like I've missed a lot. You have about 50 years worth, but certainly probably about 5 years before this, there's a lot of setup. But also, I feel like you potentially kind of go, and there's a lot set up in here of what's to come, and then hopefully that's a selling point for people, like to kind of go, oh, what did happen to the Sentry after he disappears in issue one, etc., etc., etc.
yeah, yeah. This was fun. As I said, I didn't get a lot of time this week to do any reading. I literally had like one afternoon, and I smashed all 8 episodes or 8 issues
Yeah, yeah,
in the one
yeah,
afternoon.
yeah.
Um,
It does go at a hell of a pace as well, doesn't
yeah,
it?
and the thing is, with some of these event things, they can get a little bit too up their own arse with, oh, because we've got everyone, we're just gonna do shit because we can. It was focused chaos.
Yeah,
Because yes, there was everyone there, and there was a load of really, really pretty one-page fight scenes. But
yes,
the
yeah. The
main
art
story
is the
part,
art's really good throughout, isn't it?
yeah.
Lanil Yu does the art, and it is lovely throughout.
But the main story revolves around the key 7, 8 characters,
Yeah,
and everyone else is just there because it's a big fuck off thing for the end of the world. Yeah, fuck the TV show. What read this in an afternoon? Have much a better time.
so I just wanted to pick up on a few highlights from the comic book series, but for me, before I guess we do the sort of comparison to the TV show, and probably where it's probably unfair to compare it. But you mentioned like the art, and I think there's loads of splash pages, there's loads of great battle scenes. But some of the things that really stand out for me, and it's very early doors in issue one. So when you get the reveal of Jarvis being a bad guy and Dum Dum Dugan being a bad guy, you also find out that Hank Pym is a bad guy, and you find out because Reed Richards has just figured out how to identify who's who in the scroll world, as Pym reveals like he is one, and he blasts him with a particle disperser, and because he's Reed Richards, he just basically the next scene is he just looks like chewing gum
Yeah.
stuck everywhere, but with a really grotesque eyeball. His eyeball is still there, and like it was not sort of horror, but it felt so different and unnerving to like what you generally see. Yeah, so that really stood out for me. And you said about like a cast of thousands, and I think the spin-offs go into a lot more of them, but it was bits and bobs like when Captain Marvel, a very well loved character who had died a long time ago and had never come back. One of those characters that had never come back.
Mm.
There's a special issue. It was one of the first. It might even been their first graphic novel. The death of Captain Marvel, and he dies of cancer. So they've kind of always left it alone. But in here, there's a Captain Marvel, and he attacks Thunderbolt's mountain. Now, I loved seeing it, and there was a bit of a ooh moment. Now they reveal that he is a scroll quite quickly, and I think for the betterment of the story, because I think if they'd have let that linger too long, you might get stuck, or certainly I, as a long-term reader, might have got stuck in that going, no, no, don't use this to bring back that. You did such a beautiful story about his death. Don't mess with that.
Yeah.
But you had moments like that, and there's a particular bit with Hawkeye, or Ronin as he is at this stage,
Yeah.
where one of the people on the ship is his wife, Bobby Morse, Mockingbird, and she's died in the comics. And so he very much wants to believe that she is not a Skrull, and ultimately she turned into a scroll. And I actually, I'm not going to get carried away. It didn't emotionally tear me up, but in
Mm.
a summer blockbuster, that was a bit of the emotional core for me. And then you do get a moment later where, when they are taking out the scroll ships, they do find some survivors, don't they?
Yeah,
And one of them is Bobby Moore. So she is back. She is alive. She's in the universe. She never really died. Comic book beautiful extravaganzas and things like that.
yeah,
But it also allows for that plot point to continue to be picked up on, of the, but were they really, or are they even better hidden scrolls and things like that.
yeah,
But yeah, it goes along a hell of a pace. I think it's a good summer blockbuster, and as I say, reading it at the time, um I it always felt like a bridge between two stories. But I thought, oh, that's a hell of a bridge. It felt like a good second part of a trilogy to me, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good comic book.
yeah. So we'll get the obvious elephant out of the room. Why this couldn't have been the TV show? They ain't got the budget for this.
No, it would have cost a fortune, wouldn't it? And even
Yeah,
if you tried to do a pared down version like they did with Civil War, um, it would, to have characters that mean anything to us as an audience that are already established in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that's a lot of money. Or ticking off dates that are already in their contract, and they probably want them for Avengers Kang Dynasty.
yeah.
So yeah, having that gravitas of cast was an impossibility for them.
Um, but what they could have taken from this was how the actual event happens. Have the scroll ship come in,
Yeah,
and you automatically then have us versus them, but
yeah.
with who's who sort of thing. So you play the, yes, they look exactly like our heroes. Which one is it? Whereas with the TV show, because obviously they did the whole new Skrullos thing, and it was a whole, we've been lied to, meh, 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 why didn't they give us what we want? Whereas this is much simpler of, we've come with our prophecy, this is now our land
Yeah.
because our Bible has told us so. We were only going to kill the superhumans. The normal humans are fine. Let us have at it. No, our heroes want to save the world.
One of the massive advantages the comic book has, as you say, is you need to pay an artist to draw these. You don't need to pay a load of superstar actors. But
Mm.
also the massive advantage the comic books have is 50 years of publication history. So the scrolls have been around for years, have done things for years. You can do that old costume. Dun dun dun. Have they been a scroll all this time, or have they come back? Because they've not been. So one of the reasons that was kind of there for the Hank Pym thing, although they do unpick this afterwards, is at a certain point in Marvel history, Hank Pym is a wife beater. He beats up the Wasp, Janet
Mm.
Van Dyne, and as much as it's a very interesting and compelling story, I do think at certain points many writers regretted that and went, "Oh." Um, so this allowed fresh starts. Or if any character had been written badly or there's bad stuff in it, almost this felt like you could use a sweeping brush. Now the MCU doesn't have that much history. I know
No.
there's a lot of movies, but um, I don't think there would have been them dun 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 moments. So I think it was actually kind of hogtied to a degree to a story concept. So I can see why they didn't go down that road. And the other big issue I have with it is the Skrulls are generally villains in the comics. So the Skrulls invading is a more natural concept. And as I said, and
Yeah.
as you just mentioned, doing that off of a religious decree, um, it was an even easier transition because you're going to go, well, Skrulls kind of scroll anyway. They kind of
Yeah.
come and attack us. Whereas in Captain Marvel, and I actually think it was quite a decent way of doing it, but that they subvert your expectations because anyone who knows comics will kind of go, Skrulls are the enemies. But in here, they kind of go, no, they're not. They're not the bad guys.
Mm.
But then to then want to do a secret invasion story, the next time you see them and kind of going, except some of them are,
Yeah.
buy into that. It felt forced. Whereas, yeah, it's an easy win. Skrulls are bad guys. And, you know, the couple that aren't. So, one of the reasons why you see the Young Avengers in there is one of the characters is half Skrull. And he doesn't do bad things. He's kind of like, oh, I'm a little bit conflicted because, like, these are Skrulls, but I don't really know Skrulls that well. And you're kind of my mate, so I look after you.
Yeah.
And yeah, having them be good guys and then trying to do it as a separate faction. And when I say a separate faction, and they do establish at the end of the TV series that there's bloody millions of them out there, or certainly as many as they could afford the CGI effect to have those tables.
Yeah.
It felt like the bulk of them were bad guys after we'd been told they weren't bad guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just felt cheap. So yeah, I think comparatively, this had no chance to do what the comic book did. And at that stage, I kind of go, "You are you just cashing in on the name, then, are you?" And that's one of the fundamental problems I find with the TV show is that um, I think someone went, "The name of that is cool. Let's use that." And then they started writing a TV show rather than going, "I'd really like to do a scroll story," and then maybe going, "Oh shit, we made them good guys.
Yeah.
We need to establish something." And I'd have been happier if it had been a sect that had come in from space under this religious guise, and the scrolls that we saw in Captain Marvel were actually on the good guy side,
Yeah.
because that would have felt more
Or
natural. But
or you have a few that say term because they too remember the
yeah, they might feel
prophecy in the
embittered.
book
Yeah,
sort of thing,
yeah,
and yeah, Fury, you didn't get us our land that you promised, so we're going with our brethren and our religious
yeah.
thing. But yeah,
Well, and like I said earlier about the Rhodey reveal, which felt very, um, I don't know, very very unexciting when it happened.
yeah,
But I think partially, again for me, I'd read the comic book years ago, and in that I'm going, everyone, every five panels, there's another. Oh my god, that person is, or oh my
yeah,
god, that person isn't. That this one felt like the only one we could afford, and yeah, it just come off as really underwhelming. So yeah, for me, from a comparison point, comics like infinitely better than a TV show, but I don't think they should even be comparable because I do think they're two entirely different things.
that
But
just
they
share
have
a
to be.
name.
Well, and I think you have to compare them when they do that
Yeah,
because there's a reason why they picked that name. And in the comic book, Secret Invasion felt like a better name because part of the plot point is establishing that some of them have been working behind the scenes for a very long time.
yeah,
Now, you can argue that that's in a TV show, but it's so thinly put in there across Everett Ross and
yeah,
Rhodey and loads of people you've never met before
yeah,
that I didn't feel like a secret invasion was happening. I felt like a group of terrorists, because I think that's how they were presented to the most part,
yeah,
were doing random attacks and were just a bit better at it than you'd expect your normal terrorist to be because they had the advantage that they could change shape. But it didn't feel like a secret invasion. It didn't feel like anyone had insinuated themselves into a part of it. They just felt like they were using their powers and cashing on a dumb president.
yeah,
So yeah, very poor naming, and again, I think conceptually very poor. I know they can only make so many movies, although you'd think the way they're churning stuff out, they could make millions. Do you know what? Secret Invasion for me was probably in 15 years' time, if they're still making it, and you've got 30 years worth of it, and probably some of those actors are out of contract but need a bit of work, so might do it for cheaper. You could
yeah,
have revisited this then and done something interesting with it then, I think.
yeah. It is. They say it seems like a cash in on something just because the name sounds cool.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is done, and we can now forget about it.
Well, and it got you to read the comic book, so
It
you know,
did.
like we've got to say that there's a plus point there, and I know that you'd read, yeah, you've read like some of the Avengers because of the Century part of it, and I know we kind of talked about, um, would you be sort of dipping in and out of that again? And I think the kind of the answer is yes when time pervades, but you've seen a bit of where some of this story goes, and I don't know how you felt at the end of the comic, like when you had the reveal, I Norman Osborn's now put himself into a position of power with his evil thunderbolts or his good thunderbolts,
Yeah.
and that there is this villainous Illuminati. Did that make you
Oh,
go,
I
"Ooh,
want to see what happens in this world.
yeah, yeah"?
Yeah,
And
it did its job there. That it was just like, oh, oh, Doctor Doom, Venom, Osborn, all to
yeah,
get Loki, all there,
Lady
being,
Loki,
being evil. Oh, go on then.
yeah, and so like kind of the next I can't remember how long it is. Maybe about 18 months. Maybe it's less than 18 months. But Marvel kind of after this transition under a banner called Dark Reign,
Hmm.
and it moves into that, and then there are more events. But I think probably from, and I don't think it was necessarily designed this way, because I don't think anyone knew it would be this popular. But I think effectively you can track from that New Avengers 1 up to and out the other end of Dark Reign, this kind of mega story that runs across the Marvel universe. And when I say the Marvel universe, predominantly the Avengers, but loads of this stuff touches all across that Marvel universe. You know, when Norman Osborn's in charge, that ain't good news for Spidey, and so on and so forth. But
Yes.
yeah, there's some stuff in there that I think you'll like, and I think it's like very very quickly after Secret Invasion finishes, there's a one-off special called Dark Reign: The Cabal, which fleshes out a little bit more about those people. Stuff that a lot of the stuff kind of if you're an established reader, but I think it
Hmm.
was a bit of a psst, this is who they are.
Yeah.
Here's some stuff around them. But yeah, more to
The
come for you.
yeah.
I'm sure we'll hit up some of the events anyway.
Have a look at a bit more of that. So before we run off into our comic
That was
book.
me running. Sorry.
Danielle, what did you not think out of Secret Invasion as the rest of the show? And also, if you've read Secret Invasion, the comic book,
Oh,
let us know.
and also like not only what you thought of the show, but we've talked about it on here on other ones about maybe superhero attrition, Marvel attrition, whatever it may be. But I don't necessarily kind of want to get into attrition. I'm more interested to go when someone watches a series like this, and if you didn't enjoy it like I didn't, does it put you off coming back for more? So I can't remember what is next. I think it's Loki season 2. But
Yeah.
does a bad, not connected story other than being in the universe, does a bad preceding product for you make you then not want to experience more of the Marvel stuff, or do you kind of go into each one of them going, well, whether I like the last one or not, different characters, different creative team? Because I often find that for me, I guess because of the years of reading the comics and there being 50 different series is running a month, that I probably am not going to get time to read, but I probably wouldn't enjoy all of them anyway because they're all different
Yeah.
writers and creative teams. That I do find the shows a little and the movies a little bit more like that now, of just going, oh well, that one wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I probably won't come back if they do a well. I say, but I will not come back for a Secret Invasion 2. But it wouldn't stop me from watching the next series, except for the fact that it's Loki 2, and I wasn't such a fan of Loki either. But maybe.
Yeah. Loki fell on its off after Richard E. Grant and Croc Loki.
Well, it was a series of grey corridors, spruced up by Richard E. Grant, wasn't it? And then, unfortunately, they didn't kill off everyone else and just let it be the Richard E. Grant show from that point onwards. God,
uh,
Richard E. Grant, Loki, and Sonya team up. Book
yes.
it, book it for me. Get it in.
So, as always, like, subscribe, ring the bells, comments down there. Once again, thank you for everyone who has got us to 1,000 subs. And
And
until next
well,
time,
and
oh,
again, I don't know what we're doing next time, but it'll be something excellent.
It's that time of the month, I believe. Next time.
I think it might be that time of the month as well when we look at the solicits, but I couldn't remember for definite. So probably solicitations next. So and if
Yes,
not, it'll be a series of some sort.
shall. So until then, Auf Wiedersehen.